Sing or sing and play your instrument every time you see this music.
Well, you guys know how stories start, right? There used to be this village, and in the village there used to be a weird old man. It wasn't me. This is a super long time ago. And this weird old man in the village, he had trapped all the magic that was left in the world in a stick. You might call it a wand. I think I've heard it called that in the past. Now, unfortunately, there wasn't very much magic left in the world at this point, and the only trick that the magic could do was make stuff disappear. So the old guy used to go around the town. He was a bit of a loner and sort of lonely, as the word loner implies. He was a little bit lonely. He'd go around the town and he'd go kapow! And he would make things disappear just for the fun of it, even though it wasn't very nice. For example, there might be some handsome man ready to sit down after a hard day's work and take a load off, when the old man would come up and go kapow! And the chair would disappear. And then that poor, handsome individual would be rolling on his back, all pained and frustrated. And then he'd go up to another guy, a really good-looking guy this time, who was really thirsty, and he would make the cool water that the man was going to drink to refresh himself disappear. And if that was the only horrible thing that the old man used to do, then the town probably would have let him hang around. But the old man believed that there was actually monsters that were real. He swore that he could hear these monsters stomping around in the giant woods that were out behind his house. That he could hear them stomping. He would hear the sound. It would sound like this. And so he called the monster that he thought he heard out there Abiyoyo, because it sort of sounded like that's what the monster was grumbling out there. Now, he would tell this story to the adults, and they would say, "You're crazy." But he would tell it to the kids, and some of the kids would get really frightened, and the adults didn't particularly like that. So with him scaring little kids and also making stuff disappear, everybody in the town got angry and said, "You get out of here, old man. You go far away from our town. We don't want to see you." And that's what he did. Now, also in this town, there lived a happy family. There was mom, and there was a dad, and there was also a kid. Now, one particularly an extremely sad time. This kid was sleeping. It was a perfect night until the kid started to hear this sound off in the distance going, "Oh my goodness," thought the kid as he woke up. And then there was this giant crunching sound. And the house exploded. There were doors and windows, and the roof was flying in the air. And when all the dust settled, the kid couldn't find his mom or dad. And even though the kid's name was
Alex Cameron Hunter, Carol Avery Bailey, Dana Hayden, Saltalamakia Ortiz, Bellhorn, Garcia Parra, Mirabelli Nixon, Madison, Veritek, Williams, Washington Adams, Grant Hendricks, Ishka Bibble, Chubb Weevil, Grand Moff Tarkin, Smith Fitzgibbons, Lulu Bell Portman, Mulrooney.
From that day on, all the town just called them the orphan. Because they couldn't find their mom, and they couldn't find their dad. The only thing they found in that rubble was a ukulele. So the orphan grabbed the ukulele that was in the wreckage of his house, and he ran back to town. But the only thing he could say was, no matter what they asked him, was, "Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo. Abiyoyo, yo-yo, yo-yo, Abiyoyo, yo-yo. At first, everybody was very, very sympathetic to the young boy because, of course, his parents were gone and he didn't have any place to live. But he would follow people around all day long, and the only thing he would do and the only thing he would say was, "Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo. Abiyoyo, 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 yo-yo, yo-yo, Abiyoyo, yo-yo, yo-yo." that got annoying after a while. People trying to have a nice conversation, and he'd be coming up and singing that song. Or he'd be in school, and the teacher would be trying to tell him something about math, and that's all he'd be doing is he could not get that ukulele away from the kid. So eventually, the townspeople decided that they would maybe solve the ukulele problem by sending the boy out to live with the old man, which is exactly what they did. And for a while, the old man's loneliness was gone, and the boy at least had someone to take care of him, and so together they made a great team. One horrible morning on the edge of town, the boy and the old man heard some crunching and screaming off in the distance. Remember, they don't live particularly in the village, they live off to the side of the village, and when they peeked out their window, the man and the boy could see what appeared to be a giant, ugly-looking monster stepping on all the houses of the village and going rrr, rrr, rrr. So the old man took a look at the kid and said, "Do you know who I think that is stomping on the town?" And the kid looked at the old man and he went, "Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, 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 Abiyoyo." "I think you're right," said the old man, and they decided on a plan. The old man decided that he would grab his wand and the boy would take his ukulele, and they came up with this ingenious plan. They would get the monster distracted and follow them away from the village. And the old man believed that if he could get close enough to the monster, he could make it disappear, because that was the only magic he had in his magic wand. So as they were running towards the monster, all the village people were running in the opposite direction past them, and they were fighting their way past people dragging carts and all their earthly belongings, their favorite clothes and pictures of friends and things like that, running and screaming, but they were running in the opposite direction towards this incredible, giant, ugly monster. Now let me take a moment here to describe the ugliness of Abiyoyo. Abiyoyo's eyeballs were super huge. Super huge. And his nose was ginormous. And his mouth had big, ugly, yellow teeth. And the stink coming out of his mouth was horrible. And he also had super long arms, super long hairy arms that went from his shoulders straight down to the ground. And his fingernails and his toenails were super huge and gross, because he had never cut them in all the times that he was alive. And the boy, running up to the monster, full of fright, completely almost stiff with fear, the tears stuck in his eyes, just ready to pop out at a moment's notice, because that's how scared he was, looked up at the monster. And he sang, "Ha, ha, 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 Abiyoyo, 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 Abiyoyo." Well, the monster had never heard anybody sing anything. He'd never heard music before, and he certainly had never heard anybody sing his name. So he stopped squishing houses with his giant feet, and he looked down at the boy, and he gave him a quizzical look. Quizzical looks mean that he was looking like confused. And so the boy sang it again. "Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo," with a little more confidence. "Abiyoyo, yo, 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 yo," and with the right chords. "Abiyoyo, yo, yo, yo." And the monster started to do a little wiggle. I like that. That's sort of a nice thing. So the boy started to play it a little bit faster. "Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, 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 Abiyoyo." Now the monster, he started to dance. He was dancing around, jumping from foot to foot. Abiyoyo, 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 Abiyoyo. Well, in all of his dancing, jumping around, the monster tripped and fell flat on his face. That's when the old man came up and he was just ready to make the monster disappear when the first words that were not Abiyoyo popped out of the little boy's mouth, and he said, "No, wait! Where will the monster go if you make him disappear?" And the old man said, "I don't know. He'll just disappear. He won't be anywhere." And the boy said, "Wait!" And he said, "Monster, I will play that song again, but only if you fix up this village." "Huh?" said the monster. "Abiyoyo?" "Okay." So the monster put the village back together. At least he tried. He was not a very good carpenter. But he was putting the pieces back, and roofs were basically on top of things, and doors were basically on the sides of things, so it looked pretty good. And while he was putting everything together and acting like a pretty nice person all around instead of a horrible, destructive monster, the boy was helping him out by singing the song. And just about this time, the villagers were coming back, and they were really happy because they had seen that the monster had stopped destroying things and had started building them back up, and the people from the village came back to help build their things, and they were slapping the old man on the back and slapping the kid on the back and saying, "What a wonderful job, and we want you back in town, and oh my goodness." And if things weren't good enough, that's when somebody noticed that coming from one of the monster's feet was this sound. So someone investigated. And they went over and they found that there were some people stuck underneath Abiyoyo's big toenail. And when they threw a rope in and yanked them out, they were none other than the kid's mom and dad, who had been stuck there a year ago and had been living, not very nicely, stuck underneath the monster's toenail. Incredible. And now that his parents were back, the village stopped calling him the orphan and began calling him again by his real name.
Alex, Cameron, Hunter, Carol, Avery, Bailey, Dana, Hayden, Saltalamakia, Ortiz, Bellhorn, Garcia, Parra, Mirabelli, Nixon, Madison, Veritek, Williams, Washington, Adams, Grant, Hendricks, Ishka, Bibble, Chubb, Weevil, Grand Moff, Tarkin, Smith, Fitzgibbons, Lulu, Bell, Portman, Mulrooney.
The old man invited the boy's parents to live with him and the boy, and they became a happy little family. And now, to celebrate every single year the coming of the wonderful, kind, and helpful monster Abiyoyo, the village collects in the town square along with Abiyoyo, and everybody sings the song that the boy invented after his house had been destroyed. Abiyoyo, 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 yo, 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 Abiyoyo.